All right, stats. This is the second section devoted to binomial random variables. So now we're going to analyze them, looking at mean, standard deviation, and finding some probabilities involving them. Okay. So the first objective does have to do with the mean and standard deviation. So if I want to calculate them, remember the two most important letters in a binomial setting is the number of trials, n, and the success probability, p. Remember, n and p define the binomial random variables binomial distribution. So, of course, the mean and standard deviation involve them. So to find the mean of a binomial random variable, it's just n times p. And to find the standard deviation of a binomial random variable, it's the square root of n times p times 1 minus p. So again, you don't have to memorize these two formulas, but make sure that you can use them. Okay. All right, so let's take a look here at an example. So example 1, how many correct on the pop quiz? Now, sadly, because we're not in class, we could not do this activity, but this is a neat activity that we would have done. So to introduce your class to binomial distributions, Mrs. Desai does the pop quiz activity. So here's the pop quiz activity. Here's 10 questions, class. Choices A through E. You don't know the questions, you don't know the right answers, just guess. And you're supposed to go through, say, like B, C, C, D, A, and then I give you the fake correct answers, and you see how many you guessed correctly, right? So this is what they did. Each student in the class guesses an answer from A through E on each of the 10 multiple choice questions. Mrs. Desai determined the correct answer for each of the 10 questions randomly so that A, B, C, D, and E was equally likely to be chosen. Let X be the number of correct answers that a student gets on the quiz. A, calculate and interpret the mean of X. So again, to do this, we need two values. First, we need our n value, and of course, our n is how many questions we asked, 10. Now, your p-value is a little bit more tricky. You have to kind of create your p-value. Well, you had 5 choices, A, B, C, D, or E, that were each equally likely to be chosen, right? And you had a 1 out of 5 chance of being correct. Or if you divide those, a 0.2 probability. That is the probability of being successful. So to calculate the mean, mu sub x, we're going to use n times p. And n times p is 2, and this does have units, right? This is 2 correct answers. So we're going to say if, so interpretation, right? If many, and again, remember, this is all long run, multiple repetitions, right? If many students took this 10-question quiz, and I like to include the 10 because it tells me how many total, right? So, I mean, if there were 100 questions and we only get 2 right, that's a little different than 10 questions and getting 2 right. If many students took this 10-question quiz, we'd expect, so remember, expected value, mean, we'd expect them to get about 2 correct answers. And there we go. There's our interpretation. And now you could also say the average number of correct answers would be about 2. Okay, you could also say that, but we're going to use this we'd expect. Okay, cool. And then part B, if that's the mean, then I guess you could guess that part B is going to involve the standard deviation. Now it says calculate and interpret the standard deviation. So again, to do the standard deviation, again, we still need n, which is 10. We need p, which we calculated to be 0.2. And now we're going to use 1 minus p. And 1 minus p is 1 minus 0.2, which is going to be 0.8. And to find the standard deviation, sigma sub x, we're going to take the square root of 10 times 0.2 times 0.8. Okay, so I'm going to just do that in a calculator on the side. So the square root of 10 times 0.2 times 0.8. I got 1.2649, 1.2649. Let's go 3 decimals, so the 9 makes the 4 become a 5. 1.265 correct answers. Remember, it has the same units as your mean. And we'll interpret these similarly. We'll say if many students took this 10-question quiz, and again, it's just multiple repetitions, right? Quiz. Their number of correct answers would typically vary. Their number of correct answers would typically vary by about 1.265 from the mean of 2. There you go. And again, remember, standard deviation is all about the spread, right? So how far your data is spread apart. So if we were to look at this binomial distribution, you would see a big, tall bar around the 1.221 area. And then again, as you get closer and closer to the right, like, 3 correct, 4 correct, 5 correct, you would see that right tail. This would be skewed to the right because the peak would be where this expected value is, right above 1.2. Okay. Awesome. Okay, first objective is done. Let's move on to number 2.